multiple ambulances.
4:48 a.m., October 4th, 2025. A gas station in Angleton, Texas. Inside a white Audi, 4 children have been shot. 2 are already dead, 2 are dying. The woman who pulled the trigger was standing calmly outside, pumping gas like it was just another Friday morning. When police ask her why she called 911, she looks them in the eye and says, "I didn't call 911. I called the devil." But that's not even the most disturbing part of this story. Because when investigators searched her home, they discovered something far more calculated and psychotic. This is the story of Oninda Romelis and her 5 children.
And you can see the signs. What kind of hang nigga tell you, oh, you spend too much money on your nails and your goddamn hair and feet, you can be saving that money? You go over there and tell them how to live her life. That don't call no nigga for nothing? How the hell you gonna tell me what to do with my money? Now that I think about it, I really blame you for letting these niggas think they can play with real. Y'all gonna sit and wait on the nigga to feed y'all. Y'all gonna sit and wait on the nigga to do everything for y'all. Y'all not gonna go get up and get it. So when they come around the real that do everything on their own, they feel like they can take your power away. You can't take no power from a that built herself. Like you can't. You can never. What you is gonna do is you gonna play yourself out of a real that's gonna stay down with y'all do whatever. As soon as a nigga do something, now you a weird, be a dumb weird, a tweaking. Up when you play in my face. Niggas gotta learn to play where it's safe at. It's not safe over here. Don't come playing in the energy that don't need a nigga for nothing. Don't need a nigga for a penny.
Let me paint you the full picture of that morning, because the details matter, and every single one of them makes this story more unbelievable. Oninda Romelis had driven approximately 1 hour from her home in Porter, Texas, to this gas station along State Highway 288. Inside her vehicle were her 4 children, 13-year-old Ocario Covington, 9-year-old Kyle Romelis, 8-year-old Treviel Donner, and 3-year-old Amara Chappelle. At some point during or before that drive, all 4 children were shot at close range. When deputies arrived at the scene, they found a nightmare. Ocario was slumped in the passenger seat. Little Amara, just 3 years old, was in the back. Both were already gone. Kyle and Treviel, the 9 and 8-year-olds, were clinging to life. Some of the children were covered with a white sheet. The responding officers immediately began providing life-saving measures, desperately trying to save what could be saved.
Lona and Jacob, jail records show that 31-year-old Oninda Romelis lived in a home in Porter that is about an hour away north of Angleton, where her kids were found shot in a car. Now, the Brazoria County Sheriff's Office says that they initially found out about the shooting through a 911 call. Take a listen to when deputies were first dispatched to the scene.
We need multiple ambulances.
That urgency you hear? That's what deputies encountered. Kyle and Treviel were airlifted to Memorial Hermann Hospital in Houston, where miraculously they survived and are now in stable condition. And Oninda? She was standing calmly beside her vehicle, detached, almost serene. She was detained without any resistance whatsoever. No struggle, no breakdown, just compliance. It was as if she'd been waiting for them.
Yesterday, Brazoria County deputies responded to an unthinkable, unimaginable tragedy. This event has shaken our community, and we are all feeling the loss.
But what she said next, what she told investigators in the hours that followed, that's where this case transitions from tragic to absolutely terrifying. When questioned about what happened, Romelis told investigators, "Instead of them doing it to me, I'm going to do it to them. Kill them all."
As for Romelis, she was transported to the county jail and interviewed. telling investigators, quote, "Instead of them doing it to me, I'm going to do it to them." When the officer asked, "Do what?" she allegedly responded, "Kill them all."
Think about those words for a moment. Instead of them doing it to me, what exactly did she think her children, including a 3-year-old baby, were going to do to her? When asked to clarify, she allegedly responded simply, "Kill them all." During the interview, she displayed clear signs of paranoia, repeatedly glancing at the door. Her responses were disjointed, incoherent at times. She kept insisting that her children were with the devil and were dead to me. She repeatedly mentioned being ready to work, a phrase that made absolutely no sense in context and that investigators found particularly disturbing. And that claim about calling the devil instead of 911, she stuck to that story, insisted she never called 911 at all. Now, you might be thinking this sounds like a clear-cut case of severe mental illness, a psychotic break, a mother who lost touch with reality and committed an unspeakable act in the throes of delusion. And maybe there's some truth to that. But here's where the story gets infinitely more complex, because investigators would soon discover that Oninda Rameles had been living a double life, that one that suggests far more calculation and awareness than her statements to police would indicate. See, while Rameles was telling police about the devil and making paranoid, incoherent statements, she had been carefully cultivating a very different image online. On social media, she wasn't a troubled mother hearing demonic voices. She was what some might call an instabody, posting about her material success, her salon business, her luxurious lifestyle. She had boasted about buying a bigger home for her family, completing her salon exactly how she wanted it, purchasing a car that could fit all her kids comfortably, and even buying land in Haiti to build what she called her mini mansion. Her online presence screamed success, independence, and the achievement of the American dream. But that dream was built on something far more dirtier than hard work and entrepreneurship. When investigators executed a search warrant at her Porter, Texas home, initially looking for a 5th child who remains unaccounted for to this day, they uncovered evidence of an extensive fraud operation. We're not talking about a few stolen credit cards or a small-time scam. This was sophisticated, organized identity theft on a massive scale. Scattered throughout her office, master bedroom, and even her kitchen, deputies discovered 33 social security cards. 33, all bearing different names. They found 48 identification cards, some of which had Oninda's own photograph but listed completely different names. Some of these IDs were clearly finished products, others were still in various stages of production, a detail that suggests this wasn't a one-time thing, but an active, ongoing operation. 16 credit cards with various names on them, 2 United States Treasury checks carefully enveloped and addressed to her home, but bearing names other than her own. 15 packages of blank checks, neatly wrapped, plus 2 additional unwrapped stocks. 2 printers, an HP DeskJet 4155E and an HP Inspire Insight, were clearly used for producing these fraudulent documents. Notebooks, papers, miscellaneous mail from different people, all the infrastructure of a full-scale identity theft ring. This wasn't amateur hour. This was organized crime, and it was funding every single luxury she'd been flaunting online. That salon she was so proud of, paid for with stolen identities. The bigger home, same thing. The car that fit all her kids comfortably, you guessed it. Even the land in Haiti, that dream of building a mini mansion in her ancestral homeland, all of it was built on fraud. Now, Rameles had presented herself as a tax preparer, which investigators now believe was simply a cover for her illegal activities. It gave her access to people's personal information. It gave her a seemingly legitimate reason to have printers and blank forms and all the tools of her trade. And it gave her the perfect smokescreen to explain her lifestyle to anyone who might ask questions. After all, tax preparers during tax season can make decent money, right? Except Rameles wasn't making money the legal way. And here's where this connects back to that horrific morning at the gas station. Because according to investigators, Romelis had been expressing increasing frustration with her children, specifically about how they were interfering with her business. That business, we now know, was her fraud operation. Social media posts from the weeks and months before the shooting showed a woman under increasing pressure. She wrote things like, "This past week, the devil has sent his minions to irritate and annoy me. I'm just glad I ignored them because the way I'm heading, it's jail or hell." Jail or hell. Those were her two options, and she knew it. She was posting about being irritated and annoyed. She was talking about being tired, about people disrespecting her, about not letting her children stop her life. The picture that emerges is of a woman who viewed her own children not as blessings or even responsibilities, but as obstacles. Obstacles to her fraud operation, obstacles to her social media presence, obstacles to her ability to go to happy hours and present herself as this carefree businesswoman living her best life. But Oninda Romelis' story doesn't start with fraud or murder. It starts much earlier, with a pattern of instability, poor choices, and warning signs that, in retrospect, paint a disturbing picture of escalation. Born in Miami, Florida, to Haitian immigrant parents, Romelis later moved to Atlanta, Georgia. She attended Alonzo AA Crim High School and studied political science at Georgia Perimeter College, though there's no record of her completing her degree. She worked entry-level jobs, catering at Willie's Mexican Grill, cashier at McDonald's, and package handler at UPS. She even tried her hand at rapping briefly, with lyrics about pushing through adversity and not having time for distractions. But her personal life was chaotic from the start. Romelis has 5 children from multiple relationships, and many of these relationships were with men who had serious criminal histories. One partner was convicted of attempted kidnapping. Another was arrested for murder. These weren't just bad relationship choices, these were patterns that suggested either terrible judgment or an attraction to dangerous, unstable men. Or possibly both. And then there's the matter of her oldest son, Ocario, the 13-year-old who would tragically become one of her victims 12 years later. Around 2013, when Ocario was just a baby, Romelis appeared on the reality TV show Lauren Lake's Paternity Court. The episode, which is still available online, shows a young Romelis seeking to determine which of 2 men, her longtime boyfriend Dwayne Seymour, or a friend she'd had a brief encounter with, Jeremy Covington, was Ocario's father. She admitted to cheating out of spite after hearing rumors about Seymour's infidelity, but her dramatic reveal, neither man was the biological father. The audience gasped.
Romelis looked genuinely shocked, insisting she hadn't been with anyone else. But the DNA doesn't lie, and she eventually hinted at another possible father she hadn't mentioned. Even back then, there were signs of manipulation, of playing angles, of working different men to see who would step up and take responsibility. Judge Lauren Lake called her out on it, saying, "You're working each angle. Who'll come out with a better hand?" Romelis also had a documented criminal history in Georgia, including a 2022 arrest in Fayette County for DUI related to drugs, failure to maintain lane, and marijuana possession. She pleaded guilty to the DUI charge, while the other charges were dismissed. There was also one prior contact with Child Protective Services, though details remain confidential. The picture that emerges is of someone who was struggling, who had substance issues, who had been on CPS's radar before, and who had a history of poor decision-making. In May 2025, Romelis moved from Georgia to Porter, Texas, telling people she was seeking a fresh start and peace of mind. She had no extended family nearby, no support system, just her children, and whatever criminal enterprise she was running. Neighbors would later describe her as quiet, saying they'd barely interacted with her during the few months she lived there. One neighbor who saw the children regularly said they seemed happy, waving and asking to pet the family dog just days before the tragedy.
He always waves and we tell him hi, and they come back by, and I have a little Yorkie, and sometimes she'll stop and ask if she can pet the puppy. Just seeing them Friday, and they were happy and on their way telling us hi and bye, and figuring I would see him again Monday afternoon.
No red flags, no obvious signs of abuse or neglect. And yet, less than 48 hours later, 2 of those children would be dead and 2 more would be fighting for their lives in a hospital. That same neighbor would later express the confusion and horror everyone felt. Heartbreaking to think that anything could be so bad that you have to take your children's life. I don't understand.
Heartbreaking to think that anything could be so bad that you have to take your children's life. I don't understand.
We didn't know anything about the lady, but as for the 13-year-old boy and then his little sister, he was very sweet. We would see him in the afternoons because we would sit out in the afternoon and we would see him going to get her from the daycare and bringing her back and taking care of her. We didn't know anything about the other 2 kids. And when we heard it, I couldn't believe it, and I'm still in shock. What would, have a mother do that?
And maybe that's the thing. Maybe there is no understanding this. Maybe trying to find a logical explanation for why a mother would drive her children an hour away in the middle of the night, shoot them at close range, calmly pump gas, and then call for help while insisting she'd called the devil instead, maybe that's an exercise in futility. But we can at least look at the factors that converge to create this nightmare. The mental health aspect, the talk of the devil and paranoia. And then there's the fraudulent operations. You can't create fake IDs with your own photo but different names without understanding that what you're doing is illegal and requires concealment. So was she genuinely delusional, or was she someone who understood exactly what she was doing and simply didn't care about the consequences anymore? Romulus now sits in Brazuria County Jail with a $14 million bond, $5 million for each murder charge and $2 million for each aggravated assault charge. She faces 2 counts of capital murder and 2 counts of aggravated assault with a deadly weapon. Prosecutors may seek the death penalty pending competency evaluations. She's being held in isolation under 24-hour monitoring, which makes sense given both the nature of her charges and her stated mental state. The 2 surviving children, Kyle and Traviel, are in stable condition and have been interviewed by authorities. They're cooperating with the investigation, which means at ages 8 and 9, these children are having to recount the night their mother shot them and killed their siblings.
The 2 surviving children were life flighted into a Houston area hospital where they remain in stable condition.
The trauma they'll carry from this is unimaginable. They've lost 2 siblings, they've lost their mother, even though she's still alive, and they've lost any sense of safety or security they might have had. They're now in foster care, with permanent custody arrangements still being determined. And then there's the mystery of the 5th child. Remember, Romulus has 5 children total, but only 4 were in the vehicle that morning. A 17-year-old remains unaccounted for, and when investigators searched the home and questioned family members, no one could or would say where this teenager is. Is this child safe somewhere? Did they escape a similar fate by not being present that morning? Are they in hiding in another state? The fact that this child is missing from the entire narrative adds yet another layer of concern to an already horrific case. The community response has been one of shock and grief. Sheriff Bo Stallman, in his public briefing, called it an event that has shaken our community to its core.
This event has shaken our community, and we are all feeling the loss.
And he thanked the public for their prayers and support for both the children and the first responders who had to witness this scene. Romulus's father, speaking from Georgia after the arrests, told reporters the family is still trying to make sense of it all. And honestly, maybe that's all anyone can say. Maybe there is no making sense of it. Do you also think Onenda's 5th child may be lying dead somewhere? Let me know what you think in the comments. Click on one of the cards on your screen to see more videos like this.